fascinating.
Every Nintendo game series somehow has an awful timeline, to the point where it's impressive, because the only thing Nintendo has to do
is draw a straight line. Crap. Uh-oh.
They all branch off into these webs of complete nonsense. Why does it only matter if Link dies in Ocarina of Time and none of the other games? Why does a dog single-handedly split the Pikmin timeline, and how is there 3 branches of the Star Fox timeline? There's only like 6 games in the Star Fox series. How did they do this? We'll start with the most infamous Nintendo timeline, Zelda and its what, and how. The Zelda timeline was actually a mystery for the majority of the series' existence. There were some games that had obvious connective tissue, but how they all connected to each other was a complete mystery, and fans, of course, would come up with their own ideas for how they would all connect. And send death threats to anyone who disagreed with them. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of the series and the release of Skyward Sword, the Hyrule Historia was created. A book full of little bits of information from all of the different Zelda games. And it included an official Zelda timeline. And as alluded to earlier, what the fuck is a Fallen Hero timeline? But claiming that the time travel in Ocarina of Time also creates a time split where Link dies is nonsense. Why does he only die here? And you can't argue that this represents what happens in every timeline where Link dies, because if Link dies in the Minish Cap, Baki would take over the world and everyone would be forced to dress like a 2000s emo kid. I couldn't find anything emo, so I just put on the bra instead. I'm not into cross-dressing, you are. In fact, both the Hero of Twilight and the Hero of the Wind are directly mentioned by Zelda, and these two are both on completely different timelines. So the argument started once again, except this time people knew how to dox. And after a pretty long time of Nintendo giving vague interview answers, they would finally confirm it was on each timeline. Why the fuck? Bro, just fucking pick one. Sure, it might be a little dissatisfying to have there be some plot holes since there are aspects from each timeline in Breath of the Wild, but we can just chalk it up to fun little references. This is just stupid! But it's hard to keep a timeline consistent across so many games without some shenanigans happening. Here's a series where the timeline got fucky within 4 games. Pikmin. How? However, in Pikmin 4, Olimar meets a bitch. Moss joins Olimar on his adventures and helps him retrieve all of his ship parts in record time. And during the events of the game, Moss and Olimar would actually get really close. I'm not saying dog sex didn't happen. It would have been so easy to just have Olimar go back to the planet again and have all of this happen within the context of the original timeline. But no, they just made this his first time on PNF 404 again. No plot holes would have been created by this taking place after Pikmin 3. They just did it. They just split the timeline. This is a choice. They want the timeline to look like this. Kid Icarus somehow manages to look like this. Now this one is fan-made and mostly speculation, but honestly, this is how it would have to look, because apparently, Pit dies at the end of the Game Boy game. Why the fuck is he hot? Now I'm not sure if this counts as Nintendo, but Bayonetta's timeline looks like this. This is a time square, not a timeline. Why does it start from a fucking toddler? Xenoblade just has 2 starting points. That's right, 1 and 2 are both the start of the story. Xenoblade X could technically be the earliest point in the story, but we don't know because Nintendo doesn't answer our questions. What the fuck is a Perfect Works? What is this? Is this the timeline? And this is the Earthbound timeline. I think. I honestly don't got much research left in me, and there's still like 3 major timelines left, and this is only getting worse. The Delta episode. It's about a meteor that's on a collision course with Earth, and you and some other major characters from the game try to stop it. One of the proposed solutions is to utilize the dimensional shifter in order to send the meteor to another dimension, destroying this other dimension's Earth rather than their own. Some characters like this idea, but lore keeper Zinnia is opposed to it. Firstly, because of the obvious mass murder, but also she claims that this dimension has the power to stop the meteor because of Mega Evolution. While the timeline they would send the meteor to does not have Mega Evolution, clearly implying that the dimension that they're sending the meteor to is the dimension of the original Ruby and Sapphire, which means Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are in a different dimension from the original Ruby and Sapphire, setting off an entire cascade of questions about this whole timeline. If these are separate dimensions from the original games, does that mean the other remakes are different dimensions from their original games? And there can't just be a slightly different remake timeline because Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire have Mega Evolutions, and these games very clearly don't have Mega Evolutions. And if Mega Evolutions differentiate timelines, that means X and Y also can't be on the original timeline, which makes the original tweet wrong in saying that X and Y takes place at the same time as Black and White 2, which potentially completely invalidates this entire original understanding of the timeline. And what about the other gimmicks from the other Pokemon games? Do they also separate the timelines? And even if the other gimmicks don't create other timelines, Alola has Mega Evolutions, but they're just kind of tacked on at the end of the game. Does that still separate them into the other timeline, even though they don't matter to the story at all? And if tiny little things like that can change the timeline, do we have to start taking all these other little inconsistencies across all the games to create their own timelines? How many fucking timelines can there be? All right, Fire Emblem. It's just a mess. I mean, every source has a different number of timelines. Some timelines are combined, other times they're separated. There are games that are separate from everything. There's Fire Emblem Fates. I can't pretend to care where this game is placed on the timeline. There are a total of 18 Fire Emblem games, so some fuckery is to be expected, but I'm sure we can get through it. And plenty of the games have clear connections, so if we just connect all of those, we're left with the maximum number of 8 timelines? Alright, there's the timelines of Arcania, Jugdrawl, Elibate, Helios, Magfell, Hoshido / Nor / Vala, Fodlan, and Elios. At least in the Zelda timeline, you can pronounce each split. Which means that there's room for fan theories and arguments over something that shouldn't be this complicated. And none of this fucking matters because... Engage. 12 major Fire Emblem main characters from across the series and across the timelines are all in one game. This game is still considered separate from the others because it takes place in its own area with no direct ties, but how do you explain that they're all standing next to each other? Okay, to explain real quick, in Fire Emblem Engage, you collect emblem rings which give any character who wears them access to the powers of a Fire Emblem lord from a previous Fire Emblem game such as Marth. Which means that you could say most Fire Emblem games are technically connected to this game through these characters. Well, whether or not this connects all the games would obviously come down to further context on the rings and most importantly, where they come from. We don't know where they came from. What do you mean? How is it never mentioned where these most powerful items in the world of Elios came from? Are these actually the spirits of the characters or are they something else? Elios has no other major connection to any other Fire Emblem game other than this, so the existence of these rings makes no sense and has no further context, further confusing the timeline. Which means it's a coin flip whether or not this occupies its own spot in the timeline or this somehow merges all the timelines and it's Breath of the fucking Wild all over again.
Is this okay to you, Nintendo? Did you want this to happen? Because you caused it! It's absurd that Nintendo has this problem. It's avoidable almost every time if they just stop and look at their series for even a second. But at least now it's out of my system and I can move on with my life of living on the streets with no subscribers and... no. No!
Every Nintendo series somehow has an awful timeline, except for one. The goddamn plumber. There is no official Mario timeline, or even a half-decent fan-made one.
So, let's solve this problem. And to avoid the previous tragedy, just draw a straight line. Uh-oh. This time, I have an expo marker, which I can erase with ease. You're fucking with me.
Alright, we're gonna start where all of our timelines start. And then there's the main timeline, where Mario and Luigi were conceived by his papa, whose name is unknown, and his mama, Mia. But before Mario and Luigi could be born properly, Kamek rips them out of the womb over the skies of Yoshi's Island.
What?
Alright, we can finally move on to the bulk of the Mario timeline, when he finally reaches adulthood and is immediately drafted into the Vietnam War. Huh? Mario Bombs Away is a Game & Watch game about the Vietnam War if Mario was in it murdering innocent civilians. He would make it back from the war alive, and after this is when Mario would obtain all of his other jobs. You know the ones: doctor, construction worker, cement factory worker, boxing referee, circus ringleader, typing educator, and sex educator. Most important of these jobs is of course construction worker, because this is what he was doing during the game Donkey Kong. This game is interesting for the timeline because this Donkey Kong is actually Cranky Donkey Kong, the old mentor slash hater Kong from the Donkey Kong Country games, and is the father to Donkey Kong Jr. and grandpa to modern day Donkey Kong. But this Mario is still the same Mario, which sets us up for a weird series of events. Modern day Donkey Kong is very clearly an adult gorilla, and Mario is 24 to 25 in the modern day games. And if we assume Mario is working construction at the youngest possible at 16 years of age, and if we assume that Donkey Kong is the youngest possible for an adult gorilla at 8 years of age, that means that if Donkey Kong is going to barely reach maturity, Donkey Kong Jr. would have had to have a child while these games were happening. So,
Donkey Kong Jr. has unprotected sex and becomes a teen dad. It just makes sense!
this obviously places a bunch of stress upon Donkey Kong Jr., especially since there is clearly no mother in the picture. And as evidenced in the Mario Choose Your Own Adventure book, Doors to Doom, Donkey Kong Jr. snaps and hits Donkey Kong III. This happened an unknown number of times until Cranky Kong finally witnessed it one day. He begged Donkey Kong Jr. to stop, but it just continued to happen. He had been broken down by his difficult single gorilla parent life, and this was all he had to let it out, which forced Cranky's hand, taking Donkey Kong III to Donkey Kong Country, the island, the home location of the Kong tribe where the Donkey Kong Country games take place. Donkey Kong Jr., however, was annexed from the Kong family and was forced to live alone with nothing to do except regret his actions. Now that we've established that, in celebration of the Savior Mario, the very first Mario Kart would be held. However, a Toad, after reading the title of the game Super Mario Bros., just assumed that Super Mario was his full name, so the first event was called Super Mario Kart. The Kongs were invited to this event, but since they all fled to Donkey Kong Country, the island, the only person who was able to receive their invitation was Donkey Kong Jr. So he was the only Kong at the first Mario Kart. Cranky didn't have time to tell Mario of what had gone down with Donkey Kong Jr. before they left for Donkey Kong Country, the island, so they were not aware of Donkey Kong Jr.'s problematic behaviors. Donkey Kong Jr., however, had only become more insane ever since he lost his son and his father. So he intends to sabotage the Super Mario Kart event by sneaking Bowser in there with him. He gives the other invitation, which was intended for Cranky Kong, to Bowser, allowing the man who had just terrorized the Mushroom Kingdom to race alongside their heroes. When this was noticed, they launched an investigation, and after figuring out that he had Cranky Kong's invitation, they quickly figured out that Donkey Kong Jr. was the only one who could have brought him. And after figuring that out, they hit Donkey Kong Jr. with a car. What? Am I just supposed to move on? And Bowser was able to get out of there scot-free because he's a political figure and we don't do anything to them. After all this, Bowser would attack again, causing Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels to take place. Nothing really changes except this time to celebrate their victory, the first ever Mario Party takes place. And Bowser just crashes the party, and instead of causing any real problems, he just causes communism. And around the time he caused communism, he would also have sex.
Remember that?
After this, though, something interesting would happen. Something unforeseen. An event that would shake the Mushroom Kingdom to its very core. Waluigi would play tennis. Wario would invite Waluigi to join him in Mario Tennis, and this would be the first time he ever appeared. Wario had proven himself at least somewhat well-behaved over the past few years, so they figured him bringing a friend wouldn't be that bad. And since Bowser snuck in to play again, they were much more focused on that rather than Waluigi. This gave Waluigi the opportunity to join in on the third Mario Party. This Mario Party was unique because it actually had a significant prize for the winner. The Millennium Star is a fabled star that is only birthed every 1,000 years.
You mean to tell me there's at least 1,000 years of history before this? No further questions.
Although Bowser competing in these events is getting increasingly controversial. He just helps out sometimes when things are bad for him as well as us. So it's not like he's doing this out of the goodness of his heart. It's because he keeps being weaker than whatever the new threat is. So everyone got mad and played soccer. This was assumedly an incredibly bloody event, I think. What the fuck is going on?
Am I even somewhat close to being right at this point? I mean, why else would everyone be mad in Mario Strikers? It was literally brother versus brother. It is a civil war. But if I go that far, does that mean, do I have to ask if Yoshi committed war crimes? What does any of this mean? Is any of this worth it?
And Waluigi, crotch chops. New Super Mario Bros. 2 is next. Nothing happens in this game. Why did they make this? Mario Party can happen for the 6th time. This one might be a dream, technically. I don't know. Luigi's Mansion can happen again. So the next Mario Party, Luigi can bring a Boo, I guess. Super Mario World also happens. Winter Olympics. Does it even matter where I put this thing? Is this just what happens to Nintendo every time? Putting these games on any type of timeline is just ridiculous. No matter what I do, there will be holes and dissatisfaction with every placement. In the last video, I reprimanded Nintendo for seemingly putting no effort into any of their timelines. If you didn't see it, you just have to know that Nintendo timelines tend to weave, branch off, and generally just fuck around with any sense of continuity or storytelling thrown out the window, leaving us with these dissatisfying webs of nonsense.
Maybe it is pointless. I mean, just look at this. I try to keep the timeline in as straight a line as possible, only letting movies and spin-offs split the timeline, and it still looks like this. Maybe Nintendo was right. Maybe making a timeline is hard, and there really isn't anything you can do to keep a timeline in a straight line. Is what a coward would say!
That's right, all of this makes sense without question. I wouldn't second guess any of it for a second. Next up is where Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story would obviously fall, starring me as the main villain. And Bowser does yet again have to help out the Mushroom Kingdom, perfectly explaining why Bowser's in Mario Kart DS.
It's all so easy. No further questions from you.
Since the ending of Mario Odyssey is somewhat friendly between Mario and Bowser, this leads right into Mario Kart 8, supernaturally, which also connects us to the Zelda timeline. All of it's connected.
You may ask, if I'm the Lord of the Timeline, how does the Zelda timeline connect to the Mario timeline? Why the fuck would I know that?
Olympics again, tennis again, Mario Party again, golf again. And finally, the most recent point on the timeline, Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
Now you may be saying right now, what about all the things you forgot? Fuck you, I remembered! And the Mario, the sports mix, the Mario Sports Day mix. Mechanic turned everyone paper, and Paper Mario. And there's also Final Fantasy characters that also mix. And since they all mix, and Bowser is real, she comes to existence. His paper, his dick, his paper. He goes missing. He disappears. He goes to the Hotel Mar. Peach, X-Slime, tentacle rabbits. There's rabbits, but they kill the rabbits with guns. Then you get the time machine. This all happened on the PCs when nobody was looking. Jacked off? Probably not. They made dumbass PC games in the 90s, and the time machine went over here, and everything fucking sucked. The problem left the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. Doesn't make any sense. They call him King Koopa. Is that a different guy? Or is it Bowser? I can't solve it. It's too hard. It's like the opening. Remember when they go down the drain in the opening of the Super Mario Bros. The answers, they were down there the whole time! So, that was a fucking terrible idea. Why would anyone try to do that? Well, this is it. The official Mario timeline. If you have any problems with it, feel free to comment them. Just know that I will read all of them, and they will make me cry.
It took Mario 2 mainline games to do something that made no sense. Super Mario Bros. 2 featured turnips. And they were onto something. Pretty much everyone knows the history of Mario Bros. 2, but just in case, Mario Bros. 2 was put into development right after Super Mario Bros. It was made to be much more difficult, but Nintendo thought Americans were ass at video games, so they took an easier game they had made called Doki Doki Panic, stuck a red hat on the main character, and released that in the US instead of the original. But because of all that, this game seems so out of place next to every other Mario game. The only thing that makes this game fit in with other Mario games is Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad. Everything else is completely original to this game, including... So it proved that Mario could be weird and still have a very successful game. It didn't matter how many turnips there were.
Don't eat turnips raw.
This left Mario with a green light to utilize his coping mechanisms of just doing bullshit. and decided to terrify children.
Holy shit! It's the severed head of a Japanese micro-celebrity! Ah!
All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. Was a limited run edition of Super Mario Bros. That was released only in Japan, that was given out through a radio show giveaway. The radio show was called All Night Nippon, and it is pretty well known, being broadcasted across multiple radio stations every night in Japan. And in 1986, All Night Nippon and Super Mario Bros. Had a grand idea for a crossover. All Night Nippon ran a sweepstakes in which they would give out special editions of Super Mario Bros. To 2,000 lucky listeners. These Mario cartridges were essentially normal, except with grounds for a creepypasta to be written and go semi-viral in the early to mid-2010s. Many of the sprites in the game were redone to feature the hosts of All Night Nippon instead of the regular Mario enemies and characters. It would also feature a couple random levels from the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, so then the creepypasta can end with them talking about secret levels at the end that were harder than any other level in the game.
And preteens across the world were left mildly unsettled.
The game would feature a couple other minor references to the radio station, but that was it. Now, if there was a special edition of a video game nowadays, but with a popular celebrity instead of the regular characters, I'm sure it would do great.
No. Holy shit! Fuck. I hate election years.
Because people do just enjoy seeing faces they recognize. So maybe Japanese people did enjoy seeing some celebrities' faces in a video game. Except they don't know these faces. You never see radio host faces. That's like the whole goddamn thing with radio. How is anyone supposed to know who any of these guys are when the only thing anyone would ever recognize from these guys is their voice? And this is before the internet, so you couldn't even look up what the host looked like to figure out who's who. So you just had a game with a bunch of Japanese men that you knew were significant, but you just had to take their word for it that these were them. Acme Mario plush. This true form of terror was created in 1988, smack dab in the middle of the bandwagon that was the NES, and I'm assuming not a single person at Nintendo saw this before it made it to shelves. To be fair, Mario's exact design was not nailed down at this point. But this doesn't even match how Mario is depicted anywhere, including the art on the tag of the toy itself. The shoes are the wrong color, he has no teeth, his overalls droop far too low, his mustache doesn't even match the unique shape of Mario's mustache, he's furry all around, his hat is oddly small, and most importantly,
He's bald!
even on the tag of the plush, you can see Mario with a respectable hairline. So why the heck did they take away his hair? I guess it's just a stereotype for plumbers since they're often older men who are probably struggling with the realities of male pattern baldness.
Back another millimeter.
But that doesn't mean Mario has to suffer too, and Luigi ended up getting dragged down with him with his own plush. The Super Mario Bros. Movie would be one of Mario's biggest outlets ever for his stress. This movie warrants its own entire discussion, so we'll just go through the weirdest things it did real quick. This is Yoshi, this is a Goomba, this is Bowser, and this is the writer's room.
Dudes, we should make Luigi mildly fuckable.
It's just a nonsensical direction to take Mario in, and looks completely out of place next to anything else in the series. This was during the initial video game movie boom, where people just assumed since books could be adapted into movies, video games would be just as easy. But then the moment they saw the plot of the video game, they realized that it wouldn't work in a movie, and then went,
Alright, we've completely disregarded the source material and written our own movie. Now we just gotta put all the characters' names back in. What was Mario's last name again? Mario.
This is because the N64 could only handle a very limited number of polygons on a character model. So Mario was only able to look so different with each game. In fact, since art styles couldn't really be that unique at all, many Mario models would end up being reused across multiple games to save development time.
Like God, but with penises. Why do they all look the same?
They brought in a full voice cast of people who had not had any major voice acting roles before, and made them voice for one of the biggest video games of all time. And the one professional voice actor they had, Charles Martinet, may he rest in peace,
Spider!
from the start of these games, when Super Mario RPG was released, it was immediately proven that these games had so much potential. An adventurous story with unique characters and compelling situations, and this was all done with the limitations of the SNES. It was so beloved and influential, it spawned an entire movement of people pushing for one of the game's characters, Geno, to get put into Smash.
Gino for Smash, we had that deal in July 2020. Gino for Smash. July 2020.
This is what Nintendo wanted 3D Mario to be. They want everything to feel like New Super Mario Bros. In fact, they want everything to be New Super Mario Bros. Before you know it, every last Mario game will be a New Super Mario Bros. Game. Each and every Mario game will play exactly the same, slowly replacing all interesting ideas with grassy plain stages and replacing every character with a Koopaling. And before you know it, everyone will be Koopalings. Oh, shit. Super Mario Run would release in late 2016 for iOS and early 2017 for Android. This was it, Miyamoto's magnum opus of blandness. Using the new Super Mario Bros. Art style with nothing but basic enemies and obstacles. The only new things to this game are the things that needed to be made for it to be an endless runner, and in order to have an effective mobile game storefront. But other than that, Miyamoto got exactly what he wanted. The bland, yet appealing art style, and the simple, yet satisfying gameplay sent out to the masses. And he got 300 million people to download this mobile Mario game and understand that Mario is this now. This is what he is, and this is what he always will be. All parts of his grand master plan, working in perfect tandem with one another, would finally prove that this is what Mario was meant to be. And as the game was sent out and all of the downloads started rolling in, his grand master plan turned around and fucked Miyamoto in the face. Super Mario Maker 2 would implement some of the old unique ideas, including a Super Mario Bros. 2 power-up, a game that they were avoiding like the plague in the first Mario Maker.
Not worth it.
And I'm sure we'll see tons of new games just like these on the next Nintendo console and beyond. We'll surely see even more dead Mario series revived. Tons of new things are now possible with the brand in general, and Mario might even scare kids again.
You know what, man? You're all right.
I'm just about as happy as I could be with the state of Mario right now. Almost every new game is unique in some amazing way. And while we don't have everything we wanted, it'll be a good few years before Bowser puts on the Super Crown officially, it's hard to argue Mario games have ever been as fun as they are now. But that does bring us to the end of our tale, and thank you for sticking through to the end of it. And hey, if you think this video deserved it, why not leave a like? As for me, I'll be making up for the few things Mario is still missing from his early days. I'll be seeing you at your local park. Back in November 2023, Shafrilla's Productions made a video about which Smash characters have eaten pizza, and it was a really good video. And then, a few months later, Goombana made one about which Smash characters have kissed, and it was yet again a great video.
So what question do you think goes through an incel's mind after seeing those two YouTube videos? That's right, straight doinkin'. Pure kadonkin'. Nothing in my brain except pure unadulterated Jerusalem. Which Smash characters have smashed?
We will also be placing all of the Pokemon in the they could be Kadonkers tier, since all Pokemon can technically canoodle by placing them in a daycare with a Pokemon of the same egg group. And it isn't really worth explaining what an egg group is right now, just know that Gardevoir and Muck can technically have a kid together.
Huh. It was surprisingly easy to find out what that would look like.
Or, all Pokemon can port the Nasty Slut Ditto. Next up, we will place all these characters into not Jehoozlers tier. All of these characters simply lack any evidence at all that they ever did any pencil sharpening, so we are naturally forced to assume that they never have.
Doing this allows me to assume that everyone in my life that I haven't seen souring the kraut are virgins, which doesn't make me the last one among my peers who still hasn't put the hot dog in the bun. Side effect is I still think my parents are virgins. My grandparents, on the other hand...
That means we can't take this relationship as absolute proof of some sort of monkey balling going on, even though in nature this would be proof. So unless we can prove that Dixie and Diddy Kong are of age to Jungle Jam, we don't have any evidence to place Diddy outside of not Jehoozlers tier.
However, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you sexualized teenage monkey.
Tiny Kong is Dixie Kong's younger sister. She first appeared in the game Donkey Kong 64, clearly being a very young child. However, this would not be Tiny Kong's last appearance, and while she wouldn't appear for a while, she would return in a few spin-offs during the Wii era. And...
Hey, hey, no!
She clearly matured, and I will remind you that if she matured as Dixie Kong's younger sister, that would make Dixie Kong also a post-pubescent monkey, making Diddy likely the same as well, and being a post-pubescent monkey with a girlfriend, he will go in probably Doinger's tier. And finally, our last Donkey Kong character, King K. Rool, who is a Kremling, which are based off of crocodiles. Crocodile mating rituals are done by first a male rubbing his snout against a female to convince her to take the lower snout. However, yeah, he's not getting any crocodile cloaca with that thing.
Sorry, K-Rool, but if there's an average, some of us have to be below it.
BJ. He has no evidence, of course, but in Super Mario Sunshine, he believed that Peach was his mother. And remember that Bowser is this big in this game. He has no idea how babies are made. Wario.
Yeah, they probably tried.
Captain Falcon does have a kid, maybe. In F-Zero Maximum Velocity for the Game Boy Advance, this character appears, named Kent Akechi. Within the game, we don't learn much about this character, but in the game's Japanese manual, it is stated he is a young 24-year-old pilot. According to him, he supposedly inherited the blood of Captain Falcon, but nobody knows the truth about that. Nobody knows the truth. What does that mean? Not only that, but there's a second translation on the wiki that says nothing about inheriting, just that they have the same blood, which could mean Captain Falcon is just his uncle or something. Nintendo Power did publish an article about the game that directly states that he claims to be his son. But this likely wasn't written by the original game developers and could easily just be the writer's interpretation of this intentionally vague line. So I'd say this isn't confirmation that he is claiming to be his son. However, that is still the most likely interpretation, so we'll just assume that is the case until we can get a better consensus on what is said in this character description. But even if we assume that he is claiming to be his son, what is stopping them from just saying it? Why even bring up the idea that he's not his son, unless you're going to explore whether or not he isn't? He does look similar to Captain Falcon. We get to see Captain Falcon's face briefly in the F-Zero anime, and the hair and eye colors line up, as well as arguably the nose. And this was released after Maximum Velocity, which means this could be an attempt to retroactively confirm that they're related. But in this same anime, they gave Captain Falcon the name Douglas J. Falcon, and the last name Falcon is not Akechi, so the anime is both trying to confirm and deconfirm it at the same time. But then we have to ask whether or not the anime is even canon, and if it is, could Kent have changed his name to Akechi to avoid all of the enemies Falcon likely created by being a bounty hunter? But if so, why would he even claim to be Falcon's kid if it's actually have to change her name over it? What is going on, Nintendo? None of this makes any sense!
Captain Falcon is a virgin until further notice.
According to Hideki Kamiya, the creator of Bayonetta, she did a certain thing to acquire this beauty mark, in a tone that was clearly meant to imply that Bayonetta received it after a bedroom rodeo.
You guys won't believe what just happened.
Rosalina most likely doesn't know what it is, seeing as she has lived exclusively with tiny star guys in the middle of space ever since she was a small child. And she doesn't meet another human until she meets Mario in the Galaxy games, and Mario probably wouldn't just suddenly start telling her about the birds and the bees. Inkling! The moment I started looking into Inkling, I noticed something weird. There are no known parents anywhere in Splatoon. Absolutely no one has parents at all, so I initially thought maybe Inklings reproduce in a different way. But Splatoon lore is that after Earth flooded, squids evolved to become the dominant race in the form of Inklings. Which means at the end of the day, these are still squids and should still reproduce by digging up the sand crab. So we'll just have to research how squids torpedo their eel.
Fascinating.
Piranha plant. Okay, this is a plant. Does pollination count? I don't know. Kirby! For those of you who don't know, Kirby is a version of Void made out of pure positive emotions. And my Mormon bishop once told me that premarital nailing is the root of all evil, so that's pretty easy. However, this does make Meta Knight confusing. Meta Knight is clearly intended to be another member of whatever Kirby's race is, which would theoretically include Kirby, Meta Knight, Galactonite Zero, and Void Termina. The only of which that have ever shown any reproduction capabilities is Zero's ability to create dark matter, and it is speculated that Void Termina is the one who created all these characters, but it isn't confirmed. So we have no idea if Meta Knight is even capable of reproduction, and I ran out of leads, and I'm starting to run out of patience overall, so I asked the Kirby lore Reddit. Yes, it was me. Okay. The Ice Climbers.
Ice climbers. No, I never could tell if these guys were siblings or dating. America's 263rd favorite game show. You are a lucky new contestant. Now tell me, dating or siblings?
Kind of similar. Siblings?
They were dating. Now tell me, siblings or dating?
I don't look that similar. Dating.
Siblings. You're dumb. Now tell me, siblings or dating?
Those are basically the same person. Siblings.
Wow, isn't it so weird that they look so alike? Despite dating? Siblings or dating?
Those are actually identical twins. Siblings.
Dating. They look so alike, don't they?
What?
Siblings or dating?
This game doesn't make any sense. Why are we as humans so fascinated by the fact that people who date look similar? When theoretically, if we're going for the diversity of the gene pool, we should be dating people who look very different from us, but yet people seem to date people so similar to themselves, which calls into question the entirety of the evolution theory and everything around it, and all of science. And it just begs the question, was Freud right? Should I do my mom? And there is only one woman Sonic has eyes for, and that's, of course, Princess Elise Soliana III.
This is probably the worst idea I've ever had.
That's right, Elise is the only person Sonic has ever shown romantic interest in. Not Amy, not Rouge, and not Shadow. Only this entirely human girl. I know we just established that Sonic is more human than Hedgehog. And does that make it some form of racism that I'm against this interspecies relationship? Maybe, but I'm still uncomfortable. So let's get it over with. Did they or did they not do a bit of the old in and out? While there's quite a few flirtatious cutscenes, most of them are cut off by some conflict or clearly don't end with anything special. But after Elise is rescued from Eggman for the second time, Elise and Sonic share a moment by this pond where they look longingly at each other, the screen fades to black, and we suddenly cut to the next day.
Who's ready to learn about rat screwing? I am!
Mice are well known to be very fecund creatures, which means that when they play Egyptian rat screw, most of the time, many offspring spawn. But Mickey has somehow never had any kids in any Mickey Mouse media I could find, which I at first thought could mean that Mickey is a save it for marriage type of guy. But then I found this book. Walt Disney, Hollywood's Dark Prince was a book written by Mark Elliott and alleges many heinous things about the guy who created the biggest media conglomerate to ever exist. And among other claims, it alleges a story about Walt's 35th birthday. When his 35th birthday was coming up, Walt's brother, Roy Disney, had encouraged Disney employees to throw a surprise birthday party for Walt. While they were working on the party, two of the animators had a brilliant idea to, as a gift for Walt, make an animation of Mickey and Minnie doing a horizontal tango. Walt, of course, hated it and had all copies of it destroyed, but this would still be an animation made by official Disney employees, which would be absolute proof of the mouse not being as innocent as he is presented. But there's obviously no proof that the story is real, and the book that it comes from is often said to be full of lies by Disney employees. But of course, Disney employees may have an incentive to say it is false. But this book does make some pretty outlandish claims as well, including that Disney was actually born 10 years before his birthday is said to be, and was the illegitimate son of a Spanish noble and a peasant that was sent to America. And there's actually some decent evidence for that, but it's still so outlandish I don't think I believe it. But if that could technically... You know, I haven't checked on Popeye yet. I swear if I've been looking into Walt Disney's Spanish descent and Mickey Mouse fornicating and I could have just checked to see if Popeye had a...
Are you I spent hours researching Mickey Mouse to get to this. He had a kid the whole time.
This video was a mistake. Banjo-Kazooie. I have to talk about more animal grumpy pumpy. Maybe I'll just get lucky and Banjo and Kazooie are in a relationship and we can just move on. Yeah, he effed that bird. Good enough for me. Luigi. Come on, just a couple more. Despite his relationship with Daisy and his attempted relationship with Prince Peasley, the games don't contain any evidence of Luigi using his favorite pasta noodle. However, I don't care anymore. Just put him probably. I do Luigi. Mario.
And we've come to Mario, who I tried. I tried so hard, so I could say Mario boinked, but he just hasn't. In over 35 years of gaming history, he just hadn't. All I wanted out of this video was just to know that he could pull, but he can't. And finally, we've come to the me's, which are, well, me.
And there you have it. You now know whether or not every Smash character has Smash. And now, for better or for worse, you will carry all this information with you throughout your whole life somewhere in your subconscious. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not leave a like?
Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end. And since I don't have any patrons to read out like most YouTubers, I'm gonna read you out some words for smashing I didn't get to use throughout this video. Well, everything I built over the past 27 minutes crumbles. Make the beast with 2 packs. Give a girl a green gown. Shoot twixt wind and water. Make whoopee. Grope for trout in a peculiar place. Jumping bones, tap that, and
A couple of weeks ago, I released a video on which Smash characters have smashed, which you should watch before this one. And in the comments of that video, there were a lot of people who felt that they knew more about these characters' status of whether or not they put the sour cream in the burrito than me. I initially was just going to reply to these comments, but I quickly got overwhelmed.
So now this video exists, where I have returned to talk about boinking and doinging and yahoobling, because so many of you in the comments think you're smarter than me. Which Smash characters have smashed?
Bowser had a misconception where people seem to believe that BJ is a time-traveling baby Bowser.
That was a lot of logical leaps to reach that conclusion.
I can see how people could have made that mistake because there are a lot of time-traveling babies in the Mario series, but I'll clear it up for you. Baby Bowser is the villain of the Yoshi series and only the Yoshi series, and is not related to BJ in any way, shape, or form. BJ is confirmed to be Bowser's child by multiple games and interviews. It is a little complicated, so I made a graph to hopefully make it make more sense. No change.
And that's our thinking about other M quota for the year. And now we get into the more complicated corrections, such as Isabelle, batter dipping the corn dog. Why were you guys talking about Isabelle and Doomslayer's relationship so much in the comments? I don't want to think about it. I deliberately glossed over because I think it's a little weird that this big old guy with a big old whoa is doing a wow wow with a little dog.
As I said in the last video, Isabelle and Doom Guy are confirmed or at least very likely to be married thanks to the Doom Twitter account, which placed Isabelle in the probably doingers tier because 99% of married relationships do tend to include a bit of ripping and tearing the sheets. However, people in the comments repeatedly told me that Doom Guy is actually a virgin and doesn't even know what baking the potato is. After researching this, it did seem to be a widely held belief amongst Doom fans that the creators of Doom had confirmed this during an interview. My first thought was,
damn, I'll give him a crash course.
and my second thought was to look for the original interview so I could confirm when it was said and the exact wording, but I just couldn't find it. In fact, I eventually found a photo of Doom Guy hugging a woman and a child, clearly implied to be his dead wife and kid before Isabelle, which would very directly deconfirm this fan belief. Until I eventually found a Reddit post confirming that this interview never happened and was a made-up copy pasta that began to be circulated as fact. No change.
Crash Course, still on the table, just to be 100% clear.
Dark Samus was one that I initially didn't think too hard about. I just quickly came to the conclusion that she didn't know about it since she is mostly a being made out of pure Phazon. But she clearly still has organs, making her theoretically capable of reproduction. However, she wouldn't have had a chance to learn about tossing a hot dog down a hallway, putting her in doesn't know about Yahoobaling tier. However, I didn't consider all of the ramifications of what Dark Samus is.
Does it have a vagina?
And I don't think it's actually that implausible to hide a pregnancy in the Mushroom Kingdom. I had to go through a lot to verify this, but there are no examples of pregnant characters anywhere in Mario. Which, as some of you pointed out in the comments, is because regular pregnancy doesn't exist in the Mushroom Kingdom. All births are done through storks, as confirmed by Yoshi's Island. This does not mean that shagging doesn't exist in the Mario universe, because we know vibrators exist, which means that private parts and their intended function have to exist for the vibrator to have a purpose. So this means that the way reproduction must work in the Mario universe is that the mushroom goes in the flower, the storks take note of the people doing this to obtain their DNA and somehow go off to the baby factory to make couples baby and then deliver the baby 9 months later.
It's the only way it works. It is the only explanation that makes sense. I have looked at all angles, and with that in mind, the thing that makes the most sense for the story of Mario is that Peach and Bowser put the banana in the fruit salad to get Peach to have this reaction. So no change!
Sonic was initially placed in probably Doinger's tier for the crime that was likely committed at the end of this cutscene during Sonic 06. However, the comments brought up the fact that at the end of Sonic 06, all of the events of Sonic 06 are fortunately erased. Because Elise blew out a candle in the past because Sonic told her to smile. You guys couldn't just let this go? You wanted me to talk about Sonic 06 again?
Why did you guys comment about this one so much? I don't want to watch any more cutscenes from this game. I thought we learned years ago that our actions had consequences!
But what matters is that in the Sonic timeline, Sonic 06 never happens. So you could make the argument that Sonic never penetrated Elise's ring. However, at the very end of Sonic 06, a final cutscene plays out in which Elise feels the wind Sonic creates whenever he runs. And after feeling it, she says that it feels familiar somehow, which means that something about the bond Elise and Sonic shared during Sonic 06 was able to transcend space-time.
Please tell me I'm wrong somehow, please.
Which would naturally include this moment, which means that no matter what you do to reality as a whole, this happened. Inklings were originally placed in not Jahoozlers because when squids reproduce, they die, and these guys are alive. However, people brought up that Captain Cuttlefish is said to be Callie and Marie's grandfather, which imply that Inklings do not die after a clam blitz. But Cuttlefish being their grandfather doesn't make much sense to me. First off, Cuttlefish is 130 years old as a Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, an insane age on its own, but his claimed grandchildren are clearly intended to be young, with lines where they directly say they are a part of today's youth. And the latest age that is considered today's youth in most contexts is 24. And even if we assume that they are saying this as 24-year-olds, that is still a 106-year age gap. Which begs the question of whether or not it's even realistic for him to be their grandfather. Because even in the theoretically best case scenario, Cuttlefish must have had 2 kids around the age of 53 that each went on to create their own kids at 53. He has to have 2 kids because the Squid sisters are actually cousins for some reason. And having kids at 53 isn't a common thing. Most species go infertile or die long before that age. Unfortunately, there isn't a good gauge for when squids lose the ability to make an ink pie because they die right after it happens, so we'll have to go off of human infertility rates since that's the next closest thing. And humans start losing fertility in their 30s, and it declines fast, to the point where by the time you're 50, a female's chance of getting pregnant is virtually 0. And that's without accounting for the highly increased chance of miscarriage that comes with age. Now, the odds are better for men, but it's still incredibly low. So even if we assume that Captain Cuttlefish had a remarkably young wife and that both of the kids they had were males who both managed to get remarkably young wives themselves and both got lucky with a kid at the same time so that the Squid sisters could be similar in age. And after all of that, these characters just disappeared, never be mentioned or show up at all during the numerous world-ending events that never children have ever been a part of.
Not to mention all the other areas of the game where adults just show up, like Grisco, which is an entire corporation run off of child labor. And it's honestly stupider to assume that adults do exist than saying that adults don't exist. I'm right! I'm right!
Before we get into the final and biggest thing in the comments, I want to go through one more quick lightning round of smaller things that were too small and easy to debunk for a full section. Squirtle is a baby Pokemon. No, he is not. Google a list of baby Pokemon. Rosalina is Peach and Luigi's child. No, this is a game theory. MatPat made it up because there hadn't been any FNAF content for a while. Sora has a girlfriend, but he still doesn't know what it is. Diddy committed many Bow Chicka Wow Wow based crimes. Correct, but you're getting confused. Actually, Ice Climbers are confirmed to be insert a random answer here. No, they're not. There is no canon in Ice Climber. Nobody knows their relationship. Kirby is an amoeba, so he has erectile dysfunction. No, this is a game theory. MatPat made it up because there hadn't been any FNAF content for a while.
And finally, some people said since Pit and Dark Pit are children that they're spared from Greek mythology. I got really bad news for you.
All right, this was the big one. The one everyone in the comments said I got wrong. Young Link and Toon Link both have canonical descendants. Young Link's descendant is Twilight Princess Link, as confirmed by the hero Shade in Twilight Princess, which, if you didn't know, is Young Link himself. So he must have boinked. And Toon Link's confirmed descendant is the Link in Spirit Tracks, so he must also be a boinker.
I know it seems insane that I missed this, but that's because I have been 2 steps ahead this entire time.
You see, in one of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Directs, Sakurai brought up how many worlds were represented in Smash. And in order to reach the number, he stated, you can only count Zelda 1 time. Which makes sense. Zelda is only 1 world, right? Wrong. The Legend of Zelda is 3 worlds: the adult timeline, the child timeline, and the fallen hero timeline. So Smash can only take place in one of these timelines for this number to remain accurate, right? However, it already seems impossible, doesn't it? Since Toon Link is from the adult timeline, Young Link is from the child timeline, and the incarnation of Zelda in this game is from A Link to the Past, which is in the fallen hero timeline. Luckily, the rest of our characters either firmly exist before the timeline split, or are from Breath of the Wild, which exists at the end of all timelines. Maybe. However, of course, it's very easy for Young Link to fit into any timeline, because he's also a part of Ocarina of Time, but that still leaves Toon Link and Zelda on separate timelines. However, Toon Link isn't named Wind Waker Link, is he? This is Toon Link. And when you look at the top of that timeline, that's right, Toon Link can easily just be any other Toon Link in the timeline. More likely the Four Swords Link, since his cap isn't talking, and it even explains the complete lack of Wind Waker references in his moveset. All of this means that Super Smash Bros. Has to take place in the Fallen Hero timeline, which means that not only does this mean Toon Link remains a not Jerusalem, but also that Young Link never has a chance to have his Ocarina played, because he dies before that can happen. Which leaves us with our final group of no change.
And there you have it. Our final list of Smashing Smashers. Now you may be saying, that looks completely identical to the last list. That's because I'm always right, motherfuckers! I am right 100% of the time on this channel. Do not make me come down to those comments and correct you. You will always respect me and listen to exactly what I say, okay? And as punishment, you have to subscribe to the channel! Or just subscribe because you want to see the next video.
If every single Mario were to get into a battle royale, who would be victorious?
If Jumpman, Gun Mario, and Bob Hoskins all got into an arena, who would win? Would Mario Kart Mario run over the competition, or would Vietnam Mario war crime his way to victory? All these questions you never asked and more answered today. Starting with our first question, what even counts as a Mario?
The most obvious example is the 2D Mario games. These games feature very similar gameplay at a base level, but there's tons of little differences that make them ultimately different Marios. Mario 2 can crouch jump, New Super Mario's can triple jump, and Wonder Mario can make weird people get excited.
Woo! Print the money, Mario. Mario inflation. I love it. I look it up every day. Now I'm sure plenty of you have thoughts on the rules, the Marios I've decided to include, and my general appearance. So feel free to comment down below how you'd structure this battle, so then I can silently convince myself that your way is dumb and my way is smarter. But we are now finally ready to start the power ranking. Going from weakest to strongest, our first Mario is a sweater.
I think you included too many.
Shut up!
Our next two Marios, which are merely damsels in distress Marios, Luigi's Mansion Mario and Super Princess Peach Mario. These are Marios that have to exist for Mario's friends to have solo spin-offs, because they need a solid explanation for Mario to not be helping the other characters in this game, which is fine for the games themselves, but unfortunately results in a Mario that just comes off like,
oh no! If I don't hurry, King Boo is gonna come get me and wrap me up in that big fat tongue of his. Oh no!
what even are these Marios doing? In Luigi's Mansion, Mario can't hurt the ghost, so he has a bit of an excuse, but he still makes no attempt to avoid things like this painting trap at all, and other Marios deal with ghosts all the time. Why is this one so bad at it? He manages to get captured 3 separate times, and he just never learns from it. But it's even worse for Super Princess Peach Mario, because he was done in by a vibrator. That's right, that thing that's in your mom's bottom drawer defeated Mario.
Oh no! If I don't hurry, King Bowser's gonna touch me with his vibrator. Hey, where you going, Bowser? Get over here, touch me with the vibrator.
So these Marios pretty clearly earned their bottom spots. DDR Mario will be our next addition to this tier, and he boogies. Now, dancers are generally very fit individuals, so we can assume he's not necessarily weak, but again, all he does is boogie. In every situation, he tries to dance his way out of it, which means if he had to fight, he would just... And I don't want to spoil too much down the line, but we're gonna have stuff like military fighter jets and napalm. He's not gonna last long. It's a pretty similar story for our next Mario, being the one and only Hotel Mario. Assuming my recurring nightmares about the Hotel Mario cutscenes aren't one of Hotel Mario's powers.
Oh, Mario. Oh, no, Mario.
Now I'd like to remind you that we are in the human level tier.
And when you stop and think about it for a second, you realize there's a lot of Marios that are just, well, human. God, he's so hot.
They all have many impressive repertoires of strength. Lou Albano was a pro wrestler, Chris Pratt did get in incredible shape for his Marvel roles, Bob Hoskins was 5'6", so he probably got bullied in school and learned to fight, Charles Martinet, well, I wouldn't punch him, and finally, Kevin Afghani, who I would punch. We'll talk about him at the end. And finally, Kevin. There isn't much info on Kevin out there on the internet, so I made the decision to reach out to him on Twitter to ask him where he would rank himself. And he ignored me. What the frick? You're just gonna ignore me? Well, I guess that's fair, actually. You don't have to respond to every Twitter DM you ever receive. But...
Why? I just wanted to talk. I just want to talk to the guy who voices Waluigi. I want you to talk to me. Alright, since I'm unexpectedly having to handle Baby Mario now, I'll just quickly run through Baby Mario in the sports games. I decided to combine them all into one, which ended up placing just with Baseball Mario.
Is it Baby Mario time again?
No, it's actually not.
Baby Mario!
I'm okay.
But more importantly, if something beneath him isn't immediately lethal, he can just stand on it, pick it up, and throw it back. Next up is Mario Bombs Away Mario. This is the Mario from the Game & Watch game Mario Bombs Away, which is a game about Mario being present for the Vietnam War. No time to think about the insanely terrible series of decisions that led to this. We have to figure out how strong he is. And he's incredibly fragile and weak. However,
he has bombs, like a lot of them. And because of the Vietnam War, it includes napalm and cluster bombs, both of which have been used to great effect to genocide people. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Peach's favorite cake.
Mario Land Mario seems kind of weak. Just a basic Mario without very many power-ups. Wait, what are those last two?
Well, you see, those are simply a military-grade submarine and fighter jet fully equipped for combat.
Jumpman, the true first Mario in both the Donkey Kong arcade games and the Donkey Kong Jr. arcade game, where he very impressively managed to capture a gorilla. And something notable about this is that this Donkey Kong isn't Donkey Kong. This Kong actually went on to become Cranky Kong in the Donkey Kong Country games. Which means that the Country games are clearly sequels to this game, which means this Cranky Kong can tell us a lot about how impressive it is to have captured Donkey Kong in Donkey Kong Jr. And this old Grand Elf would kill any of you effortlessly. He's nimble, he's strong, he's fast, and has fought numerous incredibly powerful enemies. And this is when he was on death's door. Imagine how strong he must have been when he was in his prime. To be fair, it's only when gorillas are really old that they start to weaken with age, and it's not even by that much. But we know that Cranky Kong is close to death thanks to his dead wife. So he's most certainly weakened, and he's weakened from this state. So I'd say Jumpman earns a spot and could turn you into spaghetti and meatballs tier. So I think we have to say this is a power-up. It just doesn't give Mario the extra hit like most power-ups. So the way to handle Wonder Flowers that makes the most sense to me is Wonder Mario gets one of each type of them, which is an insane strategic advantage. He can summon a stampede, cause superstars to rain from the sky, turn into slime, and inspire Rule 34 artists.
Now we've yet again come to the problem, how do we surpass the sun? It's black holes. You probably guessed it a while ago. It's black holes.
Now, for a black hole to have the same gravitational pull as Earth, it would have to be 1/3 of an inch in radius, which means a black hole with a radius of 2/3 of an inch would be twice as strong as Earth, and a full inch would be 3 times as strong as Earth.
And if we take the measurement of Mario at 5 foot 1 inch next to this massive black hole, it's an incalculable number. It's so big, he should not be able to survive it. Nintendo, are you even thinking about scaling when you're creating these characters? What the fuck is going on? Now, you may be left asking, what is stronger? It's God. They killed God. They're killing God. Nothing is it. Mario Sports Mix Mario killed a god. All right, you guys said this one's also a god killer. Except he just broke the laws of physics to do it. He broke the law. I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
Mario RPG is ranked so far above the other RPG guides because, similar to Mario Sports Mix, this Mario gets to fight a Final Fantasy enemy. Cool X is meant to be a parallel to Final Fantasy bosses, which, as we've established, are already gods. But he takes it a step further and says he is made up of matter and antimatter. If you don't know, antimatter is the opposite of matter, and when they come into contact, they both instantly incinerate.
You know, the crazy part is I'm barely upset anymore. This doesn't upset me. I'm fine. This is normal.
And Mario just touches this guy like it's nothing. Strip free.
Oh, this is a bikini wax. This is what they call bikini wax. Okay, those injuries. Oh, everything hurt. Oh, I shouldn't have done it. Oh, I need those back on. Oh, I need those to like. So apparently, medical supplies aren't shackles, and you're supposed to keep them on until you're fully healed. And taking them off early is a good way to worsen your injuries and become bedridden. So I'll be here for the next little while. But hey, at least there's still erotic videos all over the internet. And hey, if you liked it, why not leave a like? I've been PMJ, propped up by some tape, a shower head, crutches, and a wall, and I hope to see you next time. I hate Mario. I hate Nintendo. I hate Fox and Triforce. Everything sucks. I hate this. This is the worst. I hate Mario.
It's fake.
I want to kill.
It's not real.
I want to kill Shigeru Miyamoto.
Hey, thanks for making to the end of the best of. Just figured I'd pop in here at the end for a few reasons. First off, I got a new microphone. I'm testing it out. Let me know how it sounds. 2, say thanks for watching in 2024. It seriously means so much to me. And 3, give you guys an update on the new name and why I changed it. It is now PMJared. I changed it because my name actually overlapped with another YouTube channel called Postmodern Jukebox, which frequently shortens their own name to PMJ. Which means that whenever you look up PMJ in YouTube, you do not find me, you find Postmodern Jukebox. So I'm changing the name to avoid this overlap that's making it harder for people to just find my channel after they've seen it once, because they remember the name, but they can't just look up the name. I also think the name just overall fits better, because I've been using PMJ11 since I was a little kid, which is why I made it my channel name, but I don't like it as much anymore now because it's just 3 letters. It doesn't really feel like a name. It's like a code name almost. And I don't really like that about the name, so I figured PMJared would be more like, that guy's name is Jared. I can remember that because he shares a name with a pedophile. So hopefully you understand why I changed the name. I'm sure it'll be a little disorienting. I'm sure people will like the old name better because it's what they're used to. But I like PMJared, and I think that is what is best for me going forward. And with that, thanks for watching. Go ahead, hit your favorite button down there if you want. No, you can't hit the play button. That's lame. Why are you touching? Don't touch the 3 dots. Why would nothing cool ever happen in the 3? Yeah, okay. Just hit the dislike button. Okay, fine. Thanks for watching.